Hi, my name's Chris Cassis, and I'm the pastor of the Source Church. And I wanted to create this video because of all the fighting you've been seeing in the media. You've been seeing arguments happening between the alt-right and the left, riots in Charlottesville, and people debating whether they agree with or disagree with the presidency administration. And I do believe that God gives us a voice to be able to speak out. We have a God of righteous anger that hurts when people are oppressed. And He also is very, very concerned about social issues. And I'll be addressing some of that in my message coming up tomorrow, but I wanted to speak to the group very, very specifically who feels like there's just no hope. People who flip on the news and everything is negative, and you just feel like the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket. And so I've been doing a little bit of studying on the book of Daniel, reading a book called Thriving in Babylon by Larry Osborne, and it gave me some encouragement, a new insight that I found that I hope will help you as well. In Daniel 1, it just starts out in this very, very short passage. In chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into the hand along with some of the articles from the temple of God." And so Daniel's a teenage boy, and he's carried off by Nebuchadnezzar and his army, and he has to now serve a godless king and go 3 years learning a language that he did not know, 3 years in a godless culture and their godless education system, and most likely it's believed that Daniel had to become a eunuch, which means he had to forego having a wife of his own, having any children, or having the blessing of passing down his lineage to any of his kids or descendants, because he didn't have any. And so if you thought you had a bad day, Daniel, within a day, ended up having everything taken from him. And yet, Daniel still says in verse 2 that it's the Lord that handed Jehoiakim, king of Judah, over to Nebuchadnezzar. You see, Daniel says it's God that allowed this to happen, that God is still in control even with all of this going on. My world's fallen apart, but God is still on His throne. And the reason I point that out is because so many times today Christians are acting like God is no longer on the throne. Like God has fallen off His throne and the whole world is just going chaotic and crazy and we don't know what to do. You see, God did not give us a spirit of fear, but God gives us a spirit of strength. And so for the person who is just feeling scared today, the person who is feeling stressed out, to the person who is feeling very, very negative and just feels like there is no more hope, I just want to encourage you today that God is still on the throne. To the mother who is trying to complete everything for her kids and get all the projects done today, God is still on the throne. To the father who's trying to support his family, God is still on the throne. To the student who is at school and isolated and alone, God is on the throne. To the person who is sitting by that phone, waiting for it to ring for that job opportunity, for that interview, God is still on the throne. To the couple who is on the verge of divorce, God is still on the throne. To the person who has been abused or the person who has been let down by a loved one, God is still on the throne. To the church planner who's discouraged today, God is still in control and He is still on the throne. So the question is, where did Daniel get the hope? Where did Daniel find the energy and the passion to go through life when everything around him was falling apart? We find that in chapter 6, verse 10, where the king issues a decree that everyone has to bow down and worship only him. You know what Daniel does? He goes home, goes up to his bedroom, sits by his window on his knees, facing Jerusalem, and he prays 3 times a day, and it says, just as he did before. You see, Daniel always prayed to God. And so 3 times a day, Daniel would go, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Daniel would pray to God. Daniel would talk to God, and God would talk to him. I wonder how much different our lives would be if we spent 3 times a day running to God instead of running away from God. You see, God's usually the last person on our list. God's usually our last resort. And so if things are going bad, we try to solve problems ourselves. I know at least I do, instead of running to God. But Daniel found a renewed energy, a renewed strength, a renewed passion by spending time with his source, the one that could give him energy and strength, by spending time with his Creator. And so, how would your life be different if, when everything was falling apart and going negative, you ran to God instead of away from God? You spent 3 times a day praying to God and allowing God to talk to you. I hope that's a little bit of encouragement to you. Number 1, that God is still on his throne and in control. And number 2, he is waiting to give you energy and strength if you go to him. And if that's you today, I hope this encourages you. If you know of somebody else who needs to be encouraged, why don't you share this with them? God bless. Take care.